I don't know if you can hear me. Let me know if you can hear me. Hmm. Yes. Thankfully, someone can hear me. And if one person can hear me, at least more people will be able to hear me. Anyway, hi. I have no idea how to do this because I've done it like twice before, and some of you were there, but that was a very different kind of stream. But yeah. Anyway, listen. Okay. Let's establish this just at the beginning. I am not an animal person, and Donut is far from my favorite character in the book. Well, there are only two characters technically, so Donut is on number two. There you go. Um, I did like it more the second time around because I think for the first time around I didn't really pay much attention near the end because it and this time I realized it gets definitely way more complex near the end than I had actually thought earlier. uh See, all I have are controversial opinions. It's fine. Um, but yeah, so Donut is it. She's up there. I mean, as I said, she is not my favorite character. That would be Carl, obviously, the titular character. It would. He is one of the few main characters in a story that you actually like. Yeah, yeah, I would say the same. I am happy that the stuff between Carl and Donut that starts in chapter 7 ends very quickly in chapter 8. Because if I had to read Donut being annoying for more than like two chapters, I don't know what I would have done. I Thankfully it gets resolved very quickly, and then afterwards, as I think Mordecai even says, um, that she is basically a child. She has gained sentience like very recently, so she's gonna be a little annoying, like in a childish way. Hi, you should read this book. It's pretty good. I yeah, as I think so. Okay, let's establish this. Last year in the in our book club, I proposed to read a lit RPG book, and I had never read in the genre, so we decided to read Dungeon Crawler Carl. And on my first read through, I liked it. I wouldn't say I loved it, but obviously everyone else in the book club loved it, and they went on to read the other books, whereas I didn't. So this was technically my second read through of the first book, but I paid way more attention this time, and I think I liked it more this time around. I don't think I would change my rating of it, but it's definitely better than it was. Well, than I had thought about earlier. Hi, Roman. I asked you to read the book, and you gave up after one chapter. Uh, anyway, so let's do it in an ordered way. I want to do it in a structured fashion. Um, yeah, I can see that. It's not a book that everyone would enjoy. It's uh, the verbal crassness of it is too much, and it can definitely be annoying at times, which I think is by design, because the only crassness that you do see is on the part of uh, the AI in particular, and sometimes the other players. But so it's definitely by design. Um, anyway, where was I? Yeah. So let's do it in an ordered way, and uh, I want to start with the characters. With, as I said, Donut is an interesting character. I wouldn't really put her at the top of my list. That would be Carl, because Carl starts as a typical like video game protagonist, which uh, usually do not have a very well defined personality, because so that the player can like impose Carl wins everything. Yeah, I mean he's been being set up to win by someone. We will talk more about it as we go on, but that is something that I don't think I put like uh, thought about more last time that I should have. But yeah, anyway, where was I? So yeah, he's a typical video game protagonist with who has very little personality at the start, so that people can find themselves in it. And if you are not of dubious morality, everything that Carl does at the beginning, in particular, is everything that Carl does at the beginning, in particular, is very much like something that any person in his shoes would do. Well, any good person, because we do see some examples that are uh, not good. Let's just say that. Um, but as he grows on, as the book goes on, his personality is fleshed out more, um, and there are things that he does that I wouldn't do in his position. But I'm also a selfish person. Uh, he is far more selfless than I am. um, but yeah, that and so after the halfway point where he meets up with the other group, the middle arc group, that's where his personality starts to shine. So yeah, so him, I think that was also my complaint last time, that I didn't find him particularly intriguing. Uh, that was through half of the book, but the latter half definitely makes up for it. um, hello, Nandela. Uh, but yeah, speaking of Carl, his backstory is interesting. We only get like slight glimpses of it in whenever he talks about his dad and his mom, that both of them left him, which we don't delve into a lot. But whatever we do go into, bye Sarah. Have a great dinner. But yeah, whatever we do get into in terms of his personality, well, sorry, his backstory, uh, I would want more than that in a first book, at least, to see why he does what he does. But the breadcrumbs that we are fed is still intriguing, because he talks about his dad a lot. Whenever there's something weird that goes on. uh, See, my voice is always exasperated. Also, it's like 1:45 a.m. for me, so there you go. um, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to really think of his backstory that we're presented with, because there isn't really much in terms of that. Yeah, I will keep talking. And yeah, I should be sleeping technically, but eventually in like couple hours maybe. Uh, Anyway, um, speaking of characters, there's the second character that is of importance in this book is obviously Donut. And as I said, I am not an animal person. Like, if you're an animal person, you're gonna like Donut on your first go through, and you're obviously gonna enjoy uh, her shenanigans, everything that she does. I didn't. Uh, a lot of time she was very annoying. She definitely grows because her bond with Carl grows quite a lot, and there are some very well written paragraphs where that show this bond that they have developed over the course of this book. Um, but yeah, so I wasn't really big. Yeah, she's a cat. She's annoying. Fine. I as a character who I have to read about, it's not good. Um, uh, yeah, she does grow on you. But I don't see. I don't think I will be a cat person anytime soon. I but I am enjoying Donut more so than the first time. She is hilarious. Yes. Even like I know Roman cats are good. Her charisma is what 40 by the end of this book, so it's off the charts. Um, so in a cat like way, and in um, like if you so Donut starts as a sidekick. She is a cat who cannot really speak. Obviously, she is not sentient at the beginning, uh, but she gains sentience, and she goes from being a sidekick to a proper second uh, main character, basically a protagonist. So that journey is very good to read. Yeah, you're right, June. Even Mordecai said at one point that Donut is very much like a newly born, newly born kid, basically. Like, um, her she has an interesting worldview of every. Listen, John. Cats are sidekicks in terms of that she is not the driver of the plot. She is not driving the plot at the beginning. Even like halfway through, she's not driving the plot. She only drives the plot in the interview that happens with Odette, the first interview, and thereafter she starts gaining some active roles. But before that, she's definitely not driving the plot. So she is basically a sidekick. Um, but yeah, so Donut is also very Interesting. And by the end, she gains another sidekick, a sidekick of her own. So that is fun. I mean, yes. I mean, she is not uh, Grand Champion, Best in Dungeon Princess, Donut the Queen and Chong for no reason. She is that entire plot of her being the princess and her being the princess and Carl being the bodyguard is brought up a few times, and everyone is perplexed in the book by it. She's about to drive the ninth floor. Yes, she has the tiara. She is in the line to the throne of Blood Sultanate, so she's definitely gonna drive the plot on the ninth floor. But ninth floor, there's like 6 books till ninth floor, so I want to see her drive the plot as early as next book. Um, if Mongo gets sentience, Mongo might get a sidekick. Who knows? um, yes, like the stream, because this is the first one of hopefully many. If I don't grow tired of it, but yes. Anyway, so she is the second character. Another character that I don't know what to think about is Mordecai and Odette, their relationship. We know that Odette was Mordecai's sort of guide early on, and she says that she drove Mordecai maybe quite far, and that's why Mordecai obviously now hates her. But we don't know exactly what happened between them, which is quite interesting. The fact that she was able to get to, I think, 12th floor, and even Mordecai says that he was able to get to 11th floor. That's where he made that's where he decided to get out. Yeah. It's Mortimer. What? Huh? I have no idea who Mortimer is because it's there's no character named Mortimer. I'm pretty sure in this book, at least the first book. I don't know. What do you think about? Well, all of you have read it further, so you know roughly what happened. But yes, Matisha, what is CIA? What is CIA? Interesting. See that. Anyway, my mind is looking for pattern when there might be none. Anyway, so another and she interesting character is Agatha, and I think we even okay, that makes sense. um See, that is something that won't happen with me. I do not forget names easily, so that is the only place I have John beat. Everywhere else, he's making like 50 videos a day, which I cannot keep up with. Um, um, but yeah, Agatha, she's I don't know. I have a theory that she might be well, it's very heavily implied, probably, that she is a human from another Earth-like place or another planet where humans might be seeded from, and she's definitely working for that. Um, yeah, yeah. I mean, John has been reading on internet for quite a while now, so obviously he's gonna think very differently than I ever would. Anyway, so Agatha, it's heavily implied that she's a human from probably another planet who works with the corporation the Valent, the Va something. I forgot the name. Let me see if I can find it. Volte, yeah, the Volte Corporation. So she's working with the Volte Corporation, or she has maybe stolen from Volte Corporation the three weapons that she has, and she is being edited out of segments. She's not being tracked inside the dungeon by the AI or the the monsters and stuff, which is very weird. I think we talked about it even on last year during the book club, that she definitely has a bigger part to play, because she knows she's not being tracked, which is what's interesting. And the fact that she, for some reason, helped a bunch of people get out of the building before everything was demolished on Earth. I don't know why. Which, if she is from Volte, she would want Borant to be done soon, because obviously that they want money and whatever stuff. I don't know. It's weird. Tangle indeed. I'll get to it. I'll get to the Iron Tangle at some point. I have been hearing a lot about the Iron Tangle. Agatha has a soft spot for the elderly. Possibly, yeah, that makes sense. But the fact she doesn't help really. Even in the first fight with that slime ball, not the ball of swine. Yes, she didn't really do anything. In fact, she made, but just by her being there, the structure was not properly set up and it collapsed. So I don't know what she's doing. But yeah, it's weird. Speaking of weird things, the one thing that I found incredibly weird is that even Donut decided to jump out of the building, and Carl says that she hadn't really done anything like that before. So Donut and Carl, they're definitely being, well, we know that they were chosen by the AI for some reason, or they're definitely being helped in some way, and some way or form by someone in the corporation, or Borant, or probably by the AI somehow. But the fact that it has been happening since before the dungeon started. That I don't know, that Donut decided to jump out of the window that Carl mentioned that she has never done before. So it has been happening since before the dungeon even started, because Donut has been behaving weirdly, and we also know that she starts behaving weirdly whenever she goes into the talk shows. I think the first one, it was mentioned that there was something in the treat, and the second one, Carl just says that she gets overexcited on the talk shows, which may be it. And we also have one weird moment where her racial traits are turned on somehow, for momentarily, before it gets switched off. So both of them are definitely being aided in some form. At least Donut is definitely being manipulated in some form that I cannot put my finger on. Well, not yet, obviously, because there's like way too many books to go. But yeah. Also, yeah. Speaking of characters, Frank and Maggie, yeah, the two crawlers who are killing people and who were instructed by their guide to kill people, which is weird. that their guide would do that, because the guide is definitely going. I mean, it's creating a spectacle, definitely. But why would a guide instruct someone to kill people? What does Borant have to gain from uh, letting the crawlers die early on? Or maybe they are somehow manipulating the plot and, I don't know, making Carl and Donut into a heroic figure, and uh, Frank and Maggie into a villainous figure that both have to clash at one point, which would drive ratings, and it'll make them earn more money, which uh, seems like the case. I hate Frank and yeah, same. There is no justification in the world that Maggie could give me that would that would I don't know, implicate, no, whatever, that would help her case uh, in the fact that she killed her daughter, yeah, Yvette. So there's no justification that she can give me. Especially that Carl mentions that she would heal. The only way it can be justified if she was not healing somehow. But why would she not heal? Because she was why would she be the only one to not heal in the dungeon? I don't know. It's weird. Maggie is not going insane, so I mean, I can understand why why she had to kill her daughter, but why why would she not heal? That is the question. Anyway, the Meadowlark group, I quite like them. The four characters that we got: Brandon, Chris, Imani, and Yolanda. Uh, I think funnily we started reading Operation Bounce House in our good book club recently, and one of the ancestors in there is also named Yolanda, who's also dead. I don't know what anyone has with the name Yolanda to keep killing those characters. um, and that's not a spoiler for Boppers and Bonzos, by the way. That's just a very minor detail. Yeah, I caught it when I wanted to mention it in the last book club, but I forgot. But yeah, uh, yeah, I don't know that. I think John mentioned in one of his videos that he expects all the elderly, to get uh, some incredible racial and class benefits that would make them not useless, which is I think it even mentioned in the book, and I hope so, because they are completely and utterly useless. I like the one lady, Mrs. McGibbons, but like they are pretty useless, all of them. Uh, that is to the point. I think I started differing from what I would do versus what Carl does. um, that yeah, I would not be such selfless in that moment, but I mean, it is the end of humanity, so we don't really have anything to compare, really. Uh, um, but yeah. Anyway, one of the funniest things this book has, I think, well, one of my critiques for this book is it's a bit repetitive, given that every battle has some form of explosion, which is why I took to calling Carl the Barrel Mancer, which is a term used in video games when you are just stacking up on like oil barrels and smoke powder barrels and using them to defeat your enemies, which is what exactly he's doing. He's stacking up on explosives and just throwing them around and killing his enemies with it. Like out of I don't know, out of like 7 or 8 bosses he faced, he killed like 5 of them with explosives, which I don't know. I hope he has there's better either there's not such repetitive combat or better and more in more clever methods for combat next book onwards, because it got a bit uh, draining to read at a point. Every combat was basically him throwing a bomb in some shape or fashion. Which, speaking of the boss fights, I think even all the bosses being some sort of well, not all, but most of the bosses being some sort of combination of a stereotype on Earth combined with whatever they would the entire um, the watchers of the Dungeon Crawler Carl would know is interesting. It also makes me feel for them, especially like the horror, how it starts with her pleading and saying that I don't exactly remember what she says in Spanish, but she basically pleads that hopes she has been a good person and that she gets a place in heaven. I think that's what it said. But yeah, it started that combat, the first combat, boss combat, clues in to how weird already this game is, and that just builds upon after every fight. Like the juicer guy, the one who was throwing weights, we also see him so a moment of humanity. um Even later on, like the goblins and him just like killing all the baby goblins, which is interesting. That Donut didn't really mention it until after everything exploded, which I don't know. We moved on way too fast from that. Like Carl laments on it for like 2 paragraphs and then moves on, which yeah, the Borant is definitely just torching. But to be fair, Borant is torching all the sapient species because, as I said, they don't really want to fight because even I think the Goblin boss was expecting some kind of combat, so that's why he probably gathered, or they gathered all the children in his room so that the first phase of fight, at least they don't have to be involved in it. But Carl just tricks them and blows up every one of them, which is funny and sad at the same time. Anyway, what else was I gonna say? Yeah. So those are mostly the characters. The plot, as I said, is very linear. There's nothing extraordinary in the first half, at least. In the second half, it builds and builds and it gets more complex. As I said, I didn't really pay attention in the last time I read it, like during our book club. But hopefully, if now that I read the other books, I'll be paying more attention on it. Given they mentioned there's a very complex political plot going on in the background with the party sort of controlling Syndicate and Borant, and the Borant being in debt to the Voltaic Corporation, and all the different empires like the Skull Empire and the Orcus supremacy and whatever, them be fighting at different floors it's implied that they basically live there and that all the floors keep on happening, which tells me that they might be entire, I don't know, cities or planets that are in this that is in this dungeon, and in this dungeon is not really built every time. More so, he's being teleported to different places, but I don't know how what truth is there. Yeah, the goblins are just looking for peace, and yeah, it's very sad that, I mean, it starts with the three goblins attacking him and him basically trying to survive, and he kills the goblins. But even then, he feels bad, Carl. And as it goes on, as the book goes on, it just builds upon those sadness to the point that he explodes near the end, while he's on the second uh, talk show, the Extreme one, Dungeon Watch Extreme one, I think it's called. Glossy? What do you mean by glossy? There's definitely, yeah, there's hints to deeper story going on. There's also there are a lot of I don't know. I don't want to call them Chekhov's gun because some of them may not fire ever, but there's a lot of information, and some of it might be useful, some of it might not be useful, which is, who knows. um, Quite weird. Yeah. On the surface, it's very shallow. That's, yeah, it's a very fast read. If you don't pay attention, you will definitely miss a lot of stuff. That's what I did last time. I missed quite a bit near the end, because I had lost interest in the book at that time. Um, no, I know what you're trying to say. As I said, if you read, like, it's the information is embedded in places where you might not be looking for it, because there's very many conversations that get cut off every time someone is to say something, and then it gets cut off by someone else arriving or something else coming on. Yeah, it's like an onion. Yeah, there, yeah, there are definitely layers to it, um, which I like it. I like it more so this time around. Hmm. Um, Hopefully it continues, and hopefully it builds upon. From what I've heard from all of you, um, I do know. I mean, from what I've heard from all of you, I do know that it gets more story heavy than battle heavy, which is something as I said, it does not excite me at all. Um, anyway, so that was mostly the characters. I don't know what other characters are there. There's Zev, who's a Kuatin or something, uh, gets punished for just telling Carl that there's a rage elemental there, which shows you how strict all of them are. How strict the AI and the Borant and all of them are, which is interesting. Yeah, yeah. The fight scenes are they're good. As I said, they feel repetitive after a point. Like, I don't know. I don't want to read the same strategy of blowing up everything after like the third time. It gets annoying. um, the plot, yeah, the plot in the book. I That's the first part, and I think until even like chapter 30-ish, 35-ish, it's pretty repetitive. It's it's only, I don't remember what part he faces the rage elemental and Yolanda dies. That's where it gets like very intense. The moment Yolanda dies, because uh, so I love good, well-written prose. Because, well, as I think I've said to some of you before, that prose to me is very much like the background score of any movie or TV series. If it's average, you're not gonna really notice it. If it's bad, it's gonna ruin the movie, no matter how good it is. But if it's good and uh, even like excellent, it elevates the plot massively for me at least. So that's that same thing with prose, and the best written prose of this entire book is the part where Yolanda dies. Uh, where let me see if I can pull it up. Um, yeah. So it says, and even though Yolanda Martinez was just as terrified as the rest of us, she stood her ground against a force she couldn't possibly hold back. She lived her entire life as a hero. She died as one too. Which, yeah, that entire section is very well written. At only 4'11", the woman had a presence much bigger than her stature suggested. There was a warmth about her, something I had never felt as a kid. So it's also Carl reflecting upon his own childhood, and given Yolanda was, I think, in her 50s or early 50s, so he definitely sees her as sort of well, not really a mother figure, but more so like an elderly person who is caring for other people, something he never received, obviously. So it's very well written, that entire part. Other than that, eh, the as I said, the writing, given the prose is okay, but how it embeds the more complex plot into the funny and stupid narrative at times is probably the strength of it. Anyway, um, you know what's funny? Let's talk about some D&D stuff, because the book is a lot inspired by D&D. It's a bit utilitarian, the writing, but I think yeah, it's definitely utilitarian is the right word. Um, I hope, because as the prose of Operation Bounce House is way better than this, which makes sense. The Bounce House came out recently, and this book was like what, 6 years ago at this point. So he's definitely evolved as a writer. Um, so I'm hoping to see more of the bridge between these two books in the other books of this series. Anyway, so I think even throughout this book, it's alluded to the fact that this entire dungeon is inspired by like TTRPGs like Pathfinder and Dungeons and Dragons. And you know what's funny? The Borant Corporation, the people who make up Borant, the Kuatin, they're fish people. There's a fish people race in Dungeons and Dragons. It's called Kuotoa. Very similar name. And one of their powers is that they they can will a god into existence. If they think about something being a god, and they just by the power of manifestation, they will that god into existence. They I think they are inspired by the deep ones from the Lovecraftian myths, the Lovecraftian tales. But that entire section is pretty funny. Yeah, it's very interesting. And if you've ever played Baldur's Gate 3, there's a point. There are Kotoa in there as well, and you can actually become their god. So they worship you instead of whoever they are worshiping at this point, uh, which is very funny. It's just a funny bit. I think there was meant to be more to it, but they didn't really count upon it. Anyway, so it's very funny. Other than that, the spells that Donut learns is very funny. The order of it. She starts with like a magic missile, which any wizard, first level wizard in D&D would take that spell. It's like 3 CPO from the with the Evox. About what? Yeah, 3 CPO with the Evox. I have not seen Star Wars, but I think I remember that bit. Well, I have seen them, but a long time ago. I'm not really big fan of Star Wars. More so because I didn't really see them at the right time, I think. Yeah, it would be very funny if Carl makes himself a god. Which, speaking of gods, I think at the point Mordecai mentions that there are no true gods in this dungeon, and I think at another point it's mentioned the deity plans. If they buy into the deity plans, which means that if you have enough money, you can probably buy something, some god level powers, and become a deity, which is weird, but also an interesting take that they would be the deities of certain floors. Which, yeah. Anyway, so speaking of spells with Donut, the first spell she learns is Magic Missile. I mean, the AI worships Carl. Let's be fair. Um, that entire last bit where Carl murders the gerbil with his feet, and Donut says, Donut says that I don't know what she says. It's very funny. She says something about they have cool names and all. He's the god of feet. Yeah, he is. I mean, he gets given the shoes by the extreme the second talk show, the extreme guy, and just because he is very powerful with bare feet, and Carl decides to not wear it, which I mean, fair. He has gained a lot of aid from the AI just because of his feet. Yeah, that's the weirdest part of this book, and I am not I don't like reading that kind of stuff, so it's very I don't know, it's secondhand embarrassment, which I don't know. It's funny anyway. So um where is it? um yeah, it's it's done way too much. It's it's overdone, which is why it gets funny after a point. But yeah, but it's definitely embarrassing. um yeah. uh Donut talks about how Beatrice says time to pay the daddy tax, which I don't know. It's I don't know. It's very funny. Speaking of Beatrice, I think some of you um, know my opinions on Erin from uh, everyone in my family has killed someone, and I think we share those opinions. That's the exact same thing I think of when I think of Bear, which is I don't know. I it's yeah, why? Just why? Anyway, so we were talking about yeah, screw Beatrice. Yeah, we were talking about spells. So the first spell, as I said, that Donut learns is Magic Missile, which is the first spell any wizard in D&D would learn, because it's 100% guaranteed hit, and it does a relatively modest amount of damage at first levels, at early levels even. The second spell she learns is Torch, I believe, which is a cantrip in D&D. I think I prefer Dancing Lights to Torch, which is another, I think, cantrip, which basically lights up your way. But Torch is another first level spell that most people would take at when they're making a like wizard character. The second spell she learns is that Puddle Jumper spell, which in D&D it's very similar to Misty Step, which is a second level spell in D&D. That's the spell that's one of the first spell anyone would take when they go to second level. Second, when they get access to second level spells, when they go to third level technically. The third spell she gets, the fourth spell she gets is the raising the dead spell. I don't remember exactly what it's called, but where she can animate dead persons. The necromancy spell, which is a third level spell in D&D. It's basically animate dead, which is I don't know. It's very funny that the progression is basically similar to D&D. Even their like stats, the stats of strength, dexterity, constitution, wisdom, intelligence, and charisma, all of them are straight up taken from D&D, except for the fact that these stats can go over 20 in this game, which it doesn't really in D&D, well, in normal circumstances. So it's funny that they don't allow wisdom to change, but intelligence can change. Which, whenever you're playing D&D and you make a high intelligence character, and you are not really like, your character has an intelligence of 20, which is highest intelligence you can have under normal circumstances, and you don't. Everyone knows that D&D players get significantly dumber when they're playing the game. So you're playing a character that can make weird connections and find amazing patterns, but the player cannot. So it's the contrast between such a character and the player is always funny, and it's always there no matter who's playing. Even I would play, if I play it, I would probably stumble upon the most minor of traps, which are, if you ever see a D&D game, most of the traps are very basic, but it takes the D&D party to ages to figure out a trap, because too many cooks in the kitchen case, that everyone is thinking differently, and no one can think of the right answer. So there are always, you'll see dungeon masters, the game runners, set up traps that are like elementary level for kids, and that also stumps players at times. It's funny. Anyway, there's a lot of influences from Dungeons and Dragons in particular, at least in this book. I don't know if they'll continue that. Obviously, you have the goblins similarly inspired from Dungeons and Dragons. You also have I don't know. Yeah, you also have, like, as I said, Quotin are definitely inspired by Koto and some parts. You also have the basic classes that Mordecai mentions: the fighter, mage, cleric, bard. They're all pretty much same as D&D. Which, speaking of classes and racial traits, I don't know what Carl would pick, because they are advised to keep their current form, which I think they are going to, because they are on the covers of different books. It would be weird if they don't, unless they pick some race that allows them to keep their original form somehow. Like they can keep their race, like Mordecai mentions, he was a changeling, and if you're a changeling, you can keep the original form somehow. Do dungeon masters want people to figure out their traps, or is the goal to trick everyone? Feel free to answer later. It's not. No, no, they do want people to figure out. So Dungeons and Dragons or any tabletop role-playing game is basically collaborative storytelling game. Like, it's not players versus dungeon masters; it's players and dungeon masters together telling a tale. Um, Obviously, the dungeon master has to act as a villain and as the arbiter of the game, but they set traps, they set main story beats, they set obstacles for the players to band together and overcome. Because, as I said, it's a collaborative storytelling, so you have to have some form of antagonistic force, and that's the dungeon master. But obviously, at times he can also be very helpful. Because obviously he controls all the non-player characters. So if this were if dungeons if sorry if the dungeon crawl Carl were the D&D game, so someone was playing Carl, someone was playing Donut, someone was playing someone else, let's say, and if I am the dungeon master, I would be controlling all the non-player characters, all the monsters, all the rules of the game itself. So that's the role of the dungeon master, and the player is the one who's the active force in this world. Basically, they get to make the big decisions, whereas dungeon master presents those decisions to them. So it's very collaborative. It's not a versus thing. Well, it's not supposed to be, but people do make it, and there are horror stories of people making it a versus game, and it seldom turns out well, unless you all agree that it is going to be a versus game. Consent matters in all cases. But yeah, so that's D&D in a nutshell, or any TTRPG really in a nutshell. But yeah, where was I? I don't know. Where was it? Yeah. So what race and classes would be? So as I said, they would probably pick some race or classes that there's some race that keeps their original form, maybe changeling. Yeah, I hope so. There are many things in this first book at least that are very D&D inspired. I don't know how much it continues, but yeah. Anyway, so yeah, so as I said, the race would definitely be something that that allows them to keep the original form. Donut has been advised time and again to pick something that raises her constitution, which makes sense. She has a constitution of 4 at this moment, I think, and I don't know. I don't think she should pick a race just for constitution benefits. Yeah, I mean, Stranger Things has introduced D&D to quite a lot of people, which is good that it's growing in popularity. Even before Stranger Things, Critical Role was very big, and it came about at just the right time when 5th edition of Dungeons and Dragons was launched. So, which is a very simplified is not the right word because there is definitely complexity to it, but it's relatively simple game to play and to run. So they made it more accessible, I would say. Anyway, so yeah, I don't think that Donut would pick a race that would increase her constitution, because that negates quite a bit of the challenge. Because if all of my stats are very high, there's very little challenge, very little that can challenge me. And so keeping her constitution very low allows sort of a sense of dread whenever she goes into a fight and gets knocked down. Similarly for Carl, I don't think he'll change his race either, unless there's some, as I said, unless there's something that allows him to keep his race. But yeah, it would be interesting to see what options there are, because Mordecai mentioned that there are traditional options and there are options that are Earth inspired, maybe some mythological options. Um, like, I don't know, they are weirdly familiar with quite a bit of uh, arts, culture, and like um media. So maybe some maybe maybe there's a race called Rambo where they essentially play as the Rambo. I don't know. Weird. But yeah, so yeah, it would be interesting to see what race do they pick. Speaking of classes, I think what Mordecai insisted, like for dungeon for sorry Donut to pick a bard and for Carl to pick like a monk class. Yeah, if I D&D, I would advise the same. But unless there are some other classes that are way more suited to them, because her charisma is way too high to not be a bard. Bard is basically one of the most charismatic players in D&D. In D&D, you can be, and monk on the other hand is very good at like with fighting without a weapon. So Carl does the same, especially like his gauntlets and stuff. So at this point, I'm leaning towards monk and bard, unless there some new uh, class and racial options are presented, which are way more suitable and way more like interesting. Because I'm not familiar enough with options they have to make a judgment in that case. Um, but yeah, um, at one point, Donut mentions, "I am one of God's most perfect creatures," and it is it is very funny because one of the characters in Baldur's Gate 3 is Shadowheart, who is a cleric and a cleric of Shar. And someone on Tumblr posted a picture of her with a quote, I am God's favorite princess." And that got so viral that the developers of the game added it to the game. um, which I don't know. It's just a very funny coincidence. Maybe they got inspired by this. I don't know. Also, I am not a big fan of Carl's strategy of Loot Goblin. That is not me. I'll never play the game like that. Any game. I just detest hoarding stuff. Big everything like whatever like he at one point he says, oh, if it's not bolted to the ground, it's going in the bag, which is not a strategy I would ever use. um it's funny. And he also says that he never plays humans in a game, which is bullshit. Humans are one of the most effective. Yeah, he saves every single thing, which it gets annoying after a point. Like, I don't want to read what have you all have picked. Like, if it's not relevant, well, a lot of it might get relevant at some point. As I said, I don't know what is or isn't Chekhov's gun at this point because he picks up basically everything. Meta jokes reminds me of the names of the things in The Sims. Funnily enough, they often poke fun at things through their naming of objects. You can read a Sims book called The Game of Crones. Yeah, I yeah. Um, when I think, speaking of Crones, when Carl kills the gerbil with his feet, the he says the dungeon groans, which funny, I guess. um, the AI is being a little shit. Anyway, yeah, I was saying that it's what about people groaning when stupid political decisions are made. Yeah. Yeah, basically. Uh, everything is Chekhov's gun. Um, but yeah, uh, let's see if there's something else. Uh-huh. Yeah, the floating brain with tentacles that is are mentioned, and I think it's also the guide of Frank and Maggie in Dungeons and Dragons. There's there's a monster called the Elder Brain that sort of like the queen bee, like the hive mind, queen of the hive mind, uh, of the illithid empire. What are illithids? They are basically mind flayers. So if you've seen the mind flayers in Stranger Things, the name is inspired by the mind flayers of D&D. So that the queen bee, in a way, the one that controls all the mind flayers is uh, elder brain, and the description sounds eerily like the elder brain, like a floating brain with tentacles, which they are very Frank and Alice. Which series is that? I am not. See, I my knowledge of like uh Longbottom. Oh, Frank and Alice Longbottom. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I don't know. I was blanking for a second. Yes, I know it's Harry Potter. um, yeah, I know it's Harry Potter. Anyway, um, where was I? Okay. At a point, when the Kraken and clone, which is funny, Kraken and Karen, mixed a Kraken and clone. No, it's fine. It's fine. That's what this discussion is meant to be. It's meant to derail me, because if I had to, if I didn't want to be derailed, I would just post a video of me discussing this book. Um, but yeah, but when Krakaren are mentioned, the AI says even Eris, goddess of chaos, doesn't want anything to do with these crazy assholes, which is weird because Eris is the goddess of strife. I don't know if it's AI getting its things wrong, which, I mean, AI does. We all know that. But Eris is the goddess of strife and discord. Uh, she is the one who basically, she felt slighted because she wasn't invited to the wedding of Peleus and Themis, who are the parents of Achilles. And so she basically starts the Trojan War. Well, I think in the later mythology, it's said that she throws the apple of discord in between Hera, Athena, and Aphrodite, to saying that for the most beautiful goddess or something, and that apple of discord leads to the judgment of Paris, where Paris picks Aphrodite because Aphrodite has promised Helen to him, and that's what leads to the Trojan War. So Eris being the goddess of chaos, I don't know. It struck out to me because she's the goddess of strife and discord, not chaos, because chaos is the prime entity technically of Greek mythology. If you read Theogony, like Hesiod mentions that at first there was chaos. From chaos came Nyx, Eros, and Gaia. Probably, yeah, I think. Um, but yeah, that stuck out to me for some reason. Where was I? Yeah. Yeah, I missed this. Uh, Carl says that he never plays humans in a game, which is bullshit because humans are the most efficient uh, like ancestral species in any game. Because if they weren't, just look at the design of any other species. Elves, basically tall humans with long ears. Dwarfs, basically short humans with like stocky body. Halflings, literally half humans. Gnomes, halflings, half humans but pointy ears. Tieflings, humans but devil horns and tail. Literally every single race is based on humans. So saying that humans are boring is wrong, very wrong, because we have not yet come up with any single design that is not humanoid and still functionable. Well, people might have, but still, not in the major uh, ancestries or species or races in TTRPGs or games. Which so I take offense to that of Carl's. Um, yes. So speaking of the weird boss blob, no, I was talking about I was talking about playable characters, not like monsters, because you can't really play a blob. Speaking of blobs, though, it's very funny because that blob that when it was mentioned, my mind immediately like how it's described. It's basically similar to gelatinous cube from gelatinous cube from D&D, who are yet another monster that do basically the same thing. They are a jello cube that devour anything that goes into them. I think if you have seen like the Dungeons and Dragons movie, it's in the gelatinous cube is in there during the scene of the when they're in the maze running around and they are jumping to the gelatinous cube and it goes down and then they get out of it. So that another thing that was taken from D&D or inspired by, at least. I wouldn't say like taken, but yeah. Does Stephen King play D&D? There is Stephen King monster that is like a big plot. Probably. I mean, he has lived a very long life. He would have definitely played D&D at some point. Uh, um, I don't know if he does though. I've never really seen him play D&D. Well, him talk about playing D&D. Yeah, one weird thing. When Carl was killing the the fairies, they mentioned Damien. That never gets brought up again. Like we know learn from Mordecai that Damien is sort of the administrator of the city, that city block, I think. And I wanted to play. I mean, I think there might be mods for Baldur's Gate 3 that make you a big ball of goo. People are way too obsessed with gelatinous cubes, like in weird ways. Um, but yeah, so it mentioned that Damien is sort of the administrator of the city by Mordecai at some point, but he's never brought up again. So maybe we'll see some city administrator later on. Definitely, I think. Um, which I don't know, doesn't just stuck out to me. Anyway, so anything else that you might have questions or want to talk about before I turn this off? Yeah. Okay, John. See ya. No, see that Dandela. I definitely meant it the way you took it out of context. You should see stuff that is out there, because I have, and it's not pleasant. Anyway, so yeah, that's really about administrator. Yeah, it is pronounced administrator, because they're all traitorous. Anyway, all the humans at least. This is a rabbit hole I apparently want to fall down into. Do not. Anyway, anything else before I wrap this up? Doesn't look like it. It's okay, Ryan. It'll be online. You can watch it later, if you want to hear my interesting takes. Okay. Well then, if there's nothing else to do, see ya next time. Bye bye. It's fine. There's this. This was the music I was using earlier. The one you sent me like a long time ago. Uh, okay. Bye bye.